Robert Browning was born in 1812 and he is known for his dramatic monologues. And he was also a playwright and one amongst the Victorian poets. He was known for his irony, characterization, and dark humor, and his challenging vocabulary and syntax. His early poems are Pauline and Paracelsus, and one of his poems called Sordello was a little obscure, and it took some time for him to move on to a more personal style. He married a fellow poet called Elizabeth Barrett, and he published collections known as Men and Women, and his book-length epic poem, The Ring and the Book. So this poem that I shall read out is called The Pied Piper of Hamelin. And it talks about warning people against greed, broken promises, and the devaluation of art. It's about a piper who clears a town's rat infestation, but when he was cheated of payment by the mayor, he takes away their children, which symbolizes that broken contracts bring very serious consequences. So, one of the key meanings and themes of this poem were the importance of honesty. He believes that, of course, like everybody wants to believe that the promises need to be kept. And the town leaders' greed and refusal to pay the piper leads to an ultimate loss of their children. And he also believes that the art and artists need to be paid and the debts need to be paid, especially to pipers, meaning we have to honor and compensate creative contributors, especially in this age when art can sometimes be stolen from the artists. And the symbolism of the piper is seen as a force of retribution or a fixer who brings relief by removing the rats and also offers very devastating punishment. Here, the town council is portrayed as corrupt because they prioritize their own comfort over the town's well-being. And there is a historical context to this because the poem is based on a German legend. And this is a metaphor for the bubonic plague because the death which is leading children away or a historical tragedy. So a Pied Piper, it refers to a charismatic leader who misleads followers into misfortune and somebody who tends to influence people to follow them. So this is going to be a long poem. This is The Pied Piper of Hamelin by Robert Browning. Hamelin's town is in Brunswick, by famous Hanover city. The river Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side, a pleasanter spot you never spied. But when begins my ditty almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats. They fought the dogs and killed the cats and bit the babies in the cradles and eat the cheeses out of the vats and lick the soup from the cook's own ladles. Split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests inside men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning their speaking with shrieks and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayors are noddy, and as for our corporation, shocking to think we buy gowns lined with ermine for doles that can't or won't determine what's like to rid us of our vermin. Rise up, sirs, give your brains a racking to find a remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. And they sate in council. At length the mayor broke silence, "For a gilder-eyed mine ermine gown sell. I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one's rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I've scratched it so and all in vain." "Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap," he said, "and what should hap at the chamber door but a gentle rap?" "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little though wondrous fat, only a scraping of shoes on the mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," the mayor cried, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His queer long coat from heel to head was half of yellow and half of red, And he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes, each like a pin, and light loose hair, yet swarthy skin, no tuft on cheek, nor beard on chin. But lips where smiles went out and in, there was no guessing his kith and kin, and nobody could enough admire the tall man and his quaint attire. Quoth one, it's as if my great grandsire, starting up with the trump of Doomstone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone. He advanced at the council table, and please, your honors, said he, I am able by means of a secret charm to draw all creatures living beneath the sun that creep or swim or fly or run after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm. The mole, the toad, the newt, the viper, and people call me the Pied Piper. And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe to match with his coat of the same check, and at the scarf's end hung a pipe. And his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon his pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture so old-fangled. Yet, said he, the poor piper as I am, in Tartary I freed the charm last June from this huge swarm of gnats. I eased in Asia the nizam of a monstrous brood of vampire bats. And as for your what your brain bewilders, if I can rid your town of rats, would you give me 1,000 guilders? 150,000 was the explanation of the astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Then, like a musical adept to blow the pipe, his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled like candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere three shrill notes the pipe uttered, you heard as if an army muttered, and the muttering grew into a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses the rats came tumbling. Great rats, small rats, grey rats, tawny rats, lean rats, brawny rats, small rats, grave old plodders, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, follow the piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one who stout as Julius Caesar swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished. To Ratline home his commentary, which was of, at the first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as if of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into a siddah's press's gripe, and a moving away of pickled up boards, and leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, and drawing the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking the hoops of butter casks. And it seems as if a voice sweeter than my harp, or my sultry as breath called out, "O rats, rejoice! The world is gone into one vast dry sultry. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, luncheon, and just as one bulky sugar punch on, ready, stive like a great sun shone, glorious, scarce an inch before me, just as methought it said, come bore me, I found the Weser rolling over me." You should have heard the Hamlin people ringing the bells till they rocked the steeple. Go, cried the Mia, and get long poles. Poke out the nests and block up the holes. Consult with carpenters and builders, and leave in our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face of the piper perked on the marketplace, with first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders, the mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too. For council dinners made rare havoc with claret, moselle, wintergrave, hock, and half the money would replenish the cellar's biggest butt with Rhenish to pay the sum of a wandering fellow with a gypsy coat of red and yellow. Beside, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business was done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we are not the folks to shrink from the duty of giving you something for drink, and as a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of then you very well know was in a joke. Beside, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders? Come take 50. The piper's face fell, and he cried, "No trifling, I can't wait beside. I promised to visit by dinner time Baghdad and accept the prime of the head cook's pottage. All he's rich in for having left in the Caliph's kitchen. Of a nest of scorpions, no survivor. With him I prove no bargain driver. With you, don't think I'll bait a stiver. And folks who put me in a passion may find me pipe after another fashion." "How?" cried the mayor. "Do you think I'd brook being worse treated than a cook insulted by a race ribald with idle pipe and Wesher piebald? You threaten us, fellow? Do your worst. Blow your pipe there until you burst." Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth straight cane, and ere he blew three notes, each sweet soft notes as yet musician's cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling that seemed like a bustling of merry crowds justling at pinching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and little tongues chattering. Like little fowls in a farmyard where barley is scattering, out came the children running. All the little boys and girls with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, stripping and skipping ran merrily after the wonderful music with shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood as if they were changed into blocks of wood, unable to move or step or cry to the children merrily skipping by, could only follow with the eye that the joyous crowd at the piper's back. But how the mayor was on the rack, and wretched council's bosoms beat as the piper turned from the high street to where the Weser rolled its waters, right in the way of their sons and daughters. However, he turned from south to west, and into Koppelberg Hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He never can cross the mighty top. He'd force to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, as they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed, and the piper advanced, and the children followed. And when all were in their very last, the door in their mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way. And then after years, if you would blame, his sadness was used to say, "It's dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I am bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me, for he led us, he said, into a joyous land, joining the town in Jester's hand, where the waters gushed and the fruit trees grew, and flowers put forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrows were brighter than peacocks here, their dogs outran a fallow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagle's wings. And just as I felt assured my lame foot would be speedily cured, the music stopped, and I stood still. I found myself outside the hill, left alone against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of my country more. And alas for Hamlin, they came into many a burgher's pate, a text which said that heaven's gate opes to the rich at as easy a rate as the needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, south to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever it was men's loss to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if he'd only return the way he went and bring the children behind him. But when they saw it was a lost endeavor, the piper and dancers were gone forever. They made a decree that lawyers never should think their records dated dully if after the day of the month and the year these words did not as well as appear and so long after what happened here on the 22nd of July, 1376, and the better in memory to fix the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper's Street, where anyone playing on pipe or tabor was sure for the future to lose his labor. Nor suffered they hostelry or tavern to shock with mirth a street so solemn. But opposite the place of the cavern, they wrote the story in a column, and on the great church window painted the same to make the world acquainted how their children were stolen away, and that it stands to this very day. And I must not omit to say that in Transylvania there's a tribe of alien people who ascribe the outlandish ways and dress of which their neighbors lay stress to their fathers and mothers having risen out of the same subterraneous prison into which they were trepanned. Long time ago in a mighty band out of Hamlin town in Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So, Willie, let you and me be wipers of scores out with all men, especially pipers, and whether they pipe us from rats or from mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise.